We're going to start a Good Girl's Guide to Murder since I don't have Apollo 2 yet. Part 1. Pip knew where they lived. Everyone in Fairview knew where they lived. Their home was like the town's haunted house. People's footsteps quickened as they walked by, as their words strangled and died in their throats. Shrieking children would gather on their walk home from school, daring one another to run up and touch the front gate. But it wasn't haunted by ghosts, just three sad people trying to live their lives as before. The house not haunted by flickering lights or spectacular falling chairs, but dark spray-painted letters of Scum Family and shattered windows. Pip has always wondered why they didn't move. Not that they had to. They hadn't done anything wrong. But she didn't know how they lived like that. The Singe found a strength to stay here in Fairview under the weight of so many widened eyes, of comments whispered just loud enough to be heard, of neighborly small talk never stretching into real talk anymore. It was particularly cruelty that their house was so close to Fairview High School, where both Annie Bell and Sal Singe had gone, where Pip would return for her senior years in a few weeks when the late summer sun dipped into September. Pip stopped and rested her hands on the front gate, instantly braver than half the town kids. Her eyes raced past the front door. It was possible this was a very bad idea. She had considered that. Pausing for just a second, Pip held her breath, and pushed the creaking gate and crossed the yard. She stopped at the door and knocked 3 times. Her reflection stared back at her, the long dark hair the creaking gates and crossed the yard. She stopped at the door and knocked 3 times. Her reflection stared back at her, the long, dark-haired, sun-bleached and a lighter brown at the tips, a pale white skin despite a week spent in the Caribbean, sharp, muddy green eyes braced for impact. The door opened with a clatter of falling chains and clicking locks. "Hello?" he said, holding the door half open, with his hands folded over the sides. Pip blinked to break her stare, but she couldn't help it. He looked so much like Sal. Sal she knew from all these television reports and newspapers. The Sal was now fading from her memory. Robbie and his brother's messy black side swept her hair and arched eyebrows and oaken-hued skin. "Hello?" he said again. Pip flattered. He'd grown even taller since she last saw him. She'd never been this close before, but now that she was, he thought he had a dimple in his chin, just like hers. Sorry. Hi." She did an awkward half wave, which she immediately regretted. Hi, I'm Ravi," she said. You don't know me. I'm Pippa Fritz Amobi. I was a few years below you at school before you left, okay? I was just wondering if I could borrow a second of your time. Well, not only a second, we were already past that. Maybe like a few sequential seconds, if you can spare them. Oh God, this was what happened when she was nervous. Words spewed out, unchecked and over-explained until someone stopped her. Robbie looked confused. "Sorry," Pip said. I'm doing my senior capstone project at school." "What's a capstone project?" "It's kind of like this senior thesis you work on independently alongside normal classes. You can pick any topic you want, and I was wondering you'd be willing to be interviewed for mine." "What is it?" His dark eyebrows hugged closer to his eyes. It's about what happened 5 years ago." Ravi exhaled loudly, his lips curling with what looked like anger. Why? He said. Because I don't think your brother did it, and I'm going to try to prove it. Pippa Fittis Amobi. Capstone Project Log, Entry 1. Our Capstone Project logs are supposed to be for recording any obstacles we faced in our research, our progress, and aims of our final reports. Mine will have to be a little different because I'm going to record all my research here, both relevant and irrelevant, because I don't really know what my final report will be yet or what will end up being important. I will just have to wait and see where I am after investigating and what essay I can bring together. I'm hoping it will not be the topic I proposed to Miss Morgan. I'm hoping it'll be the truth. What really happened to Annie Bell on April 18, 2014? And if my instincts tell me Sal Singe is not guilty, then who killed her? I don't think I actually solved the case and figured out who murdered Andy. I'm not deluded. But I'm hoping my findings might lead to a reasonable doubt that Sal's guilt and suggest to police they were mistaken in closing the case without digging further. The first stage in this project to research what happened to Andra Bell, who's known to everyone as Andy, and the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. From the national online news outlet to the report on the event, Andra Bell, 17, was reported missing from her home in Fairview, Connecticut last Friday. She left home in her car, white Honda Civic, with her cell phone, but did not take any clothes with her. Police says her disappearance is completely out of character. Police began searching the woodlands near their family home this past weekend. Andrea, known as Andy, is described as white, 5 feet 6 inches tall, with long blonde hair and blue eyes. It is thought that she is wearing dark jeans and a blue cropped sweater on the night she went missing. Other sources had more details as when Andy was last seen and alive, and the time frame in which she believed to be abducted. Annie Bell has last been seen alive by her younger sister Becca around 10:30 p.m. on April 18, 2014. This was corroborated by the police in a press conference on Tuesday, April 22. Footage taken from a security cam outside the bank on Fairview Main Street confirms that Andy Carter was seen driving away from her home at about 10:40 p.m. According to her patients, Jason and Don Bell, Audie was supposed to pick them up from a dinner party at 12:45 a.m. When Andy didn't show up or answer any of their phone calls, they started reaching out to her friends to see if anyone knew of her whereabouts. Jason Bell called the police to report her started missing at 3 a.m. Saturday morning. So whatever happened to Andra Bell that night happened between 10:40 and 12:45 a.m. Here seems like a good place to type up the transcript and interview with Angela Johnson. Angela? Hello? Hi, is this Angela Johnson? Speaking, yep. Is this Pippa? Yes, thanks so much for replying to my email. Do you mind if I record this interview for my project? Yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry, I've only got about 10 minutes. So what do you want to know about missing persons? Well, I was wondering if you could talk me through when someone is reported missing, the process and the first steps taken by the police. When someone is reported missing, the police will try to get as much detail as possible so they can identify the potential risks to a missing person, and an appropriate police response can be made. They'll ask for names, age, description, and the clothes that were last seen wearing. The circumstances of their disappearance, if going missing, is out of character for this person, details of any vehicle involved. Using this information, the police will determine whether this is an at-risk missing persons case. And what circumstances would it make it an at-risk case? If they are vulnerable because of their age or disability, or the behavior is out of character, which indicates they could have been exposed to harm. So if the missing person is 17 years old and is deemed out of a character for her to go missing, would that be considered a risk case? And a minor, absolutely, when a minor is involved. So how would the police respond? Well, there would be immediate deployment of police officers to get to the location the person is missing from. The officers would get further information about the missing person, such as details of their friends or partners, any health conditions, financial information. In case they want to withdraw money, the police will also need recent photograph and might take DNA samples. In case they're needed within foreseen examinations, and with consent homeowners, the location would be searched thoroughly to see if the missing person is concealed or hiding there, and to establish whether there are any further in the evidential leads. So immediately the police are looking for any clues or suggestion that the missing person has been the victim of a crime. Absolutely. If circumstances of the disappearance are suspicious, officers are instructed to document evidence early on as though they were investigating a murder. Of course, only a very small percentage of missing persons cases turn into homicide cases. And what happens if nothing significant turns up after an initial home search? They'll expand the search to the immediate area. They'll question friends, neighbors, anyone who might have relevant information. If it is a teenager who's missing, we can't assume the reporting parents know all of their child friends and acquaintance. Peers are good points to contact to establish other important leads, and any secret boyfriends, that sort of thing. And a press strategy is usually discussed because appeals for information in the media can be very useful in these situations. So if a 17-year-old girl is missing, who's gone missing, the police would contact her friends and boyfriend early on. Yes, of course, inquiries will be made, because if the missing person has run away, they're likely to be hiding out with someone close to them. And at what point is missing person's case do police assume they're looking for a body? Well, time-wise, it's not. Oh, Pippa, I have to go. Sorry, I've been called into my meeting. Oh, okay, thanks. Thanks for giving me the time to talk to me. And if you have any more questions, just shoot me an email and I'll get them when I can. Will do, thanks. I found these statistics. 80% of missing people are found in the first 24 hours. 97 are found in the first week. 99 cases are resolved in the first year. That leaves just 1% are never found. That leaves just 1%. 1% of who disappears are never found. Just 0.25 of all missing person cases have fatal outcome. So when does this leave Annie Bell floating incessantly between 1% and 0.25? Even though Andy had never been found and her body never recovered, some police accept that she is dead. And why is that? Sounds strange is why. Pip's hands hovered over the keyboard as she strained to listen to commotion downstairs. A heavy crash of footsteps, skidding cloths, and unrestrained boyish giggles. Josh, why is the dog wearing my shirts? Pip's dad shouted. The sound floating upstairs. Pip laughed as she clicked to save her capstone project and closed her laptop. It was never quiet once her dad returned from work. Downstairs, Pip found Josh running from room to room, kitchen to hallway, to the living room on repeat, clocking as he went. And close behind was Barney, the golden retriever, wearing her dad's loudest shirt, the binary green pattern, ones he polished in the oak calm, excitement whistling through his teeth. And bringing up the rear was Pip's dad in his Hugo Boss three-piece suit, all 6.5 feet of him charging after the dog and the boy, laughing in wild bursts. "Oh my God, I was trying to do my homework," Pip said, restraining a smile as she jumped back to avoid being mowed. Barney stopped for a moment and to headbutt her shin, and then went cambered off and to jump on Victor and Josh as they collapsed together on the sofa. "Hey, Pickle," and Dad said, patting on the couch beside him. "Hi, Dad. You're so quiet. I didn't know you were home, my Pipsqueak. You're never clever to recycle a joke." She sat down beside them. Josh started excavating his right nostril, and Pip's dad batted his hands away. "How are your days then?" her dad asked, setting Josh off in graphic spiel about about the soccer games he played out earlier. Pip zoned out. She already heard it in the car when she picked Josh up from practice. She only been distracted by the way the replacement coach had stared at her, uncertain when she pointed out which of the 9-year-olds was hers and said, "I'm Josh's sister." She should have been used to it by now, the lingering looks while people try to work out logistics of her family. Victor, the tall Nigerian man, was evidently her stepfather, and Josh her half-brother. But Pip didn't like those words, those cool technical literaries. The people you love weren't calculated abstract or held at arm's length or across the decimal point. Victor was her dad, who raised her since she was 4 years old, and Josh was her annoying little brother. Her real father, the man who lent to the Frizz to her name, died in a car accident when she was 10 months old. And though Pip nodded and smiled when her mom would ask whenever she remembered the way her father hummed while he brushed his teeth, or he laughed when Pip's second spoken word was poo, she didn't remember him. But sometimes remembering isn't for yourself. Sometimes you do to make someone else smile. "And how's the project going?" Pip, her dad, turned to her as he unbuttoned the shirt from the dog. "It's okay," she said. "I'm researching at the moment. I did go see Ravi Singh this morning, though, and he was busy. But he said I could come back on Friday." "I wouldn't," Josh said in a cautionary tone. "That's because you're judgmental, precious boy who still thinks people live inside traffic lights." Pip looked at him. "Singhs haven't done anything wrong." Victor stepped in. "Josh, trying to imagine if everyone judged you because something of your sister has done. All Pip ever does is homework." She swung a cushion at Josh's face, and her dad held the boy's arms as he squirmed to retaliate, tickling his ribs. As Pip watched them play fighting, she couldn't help but wonder where the Singhs ever laughed like that anymore, or the Bells. Maybe laughter was one of every first things you lost, like after something like that. Capstone Project Lock, Entry 2. What happened next in Annie Bell's case is hard to piece together from newspaper reports. So I have to fill the gaps with guessworks and rumors until the picture came clear. Hopefully interviews with Ravi and Naomi, was one of Sal's best friends, will help. According to what Angela has said, the police will have asked for details about Andy's families early on, presumably after taking a statement from the Bell family. After some serious social media stalking, it looks like Andy's best friends were 2 girls named Chloe Birch and Emma Hutton. This post was almost 2 weeks before Annie disappeared. It looked like neither Chloe nor Emma lives in this Fairview anymore, but I'll message them to see if they do a phone interview. Chloe and Emma did a lot on that first weekend, April 19 and 20, to help spread Connecticut State Police Twitter campaign, Find Andy. I don't think it's too big of a leap to assume that the police contacted Chloe and Emma either on Friday night Andy went missing or the next morning. What they said to the police, I don't know. Hopefully I can find out. We do know that what police spoke to Andy's boyfriend at the time. His name was Sal Singh, and he was attending his senior year at Fairview High School along with Andy. At some point on Saturday, April 19, the police contacted him. Detective Richard Hawkins confirmed that officers had questioned Sally Singh into his whereabouts the previous night, and particularly the period of time during which it is believed Andy went missing. Friday night, Sal had been hanging out at his friend Max Hadwin's house. He was with his 4 best friends, Naomi Ward, Jake Lawrence, Melly Simpson, and Max. Again, I need to check with Naomi this week. But I think Sal told the police that he left Max's around 12:15 a.m. He walked home, and his father Morganson confirmed that Sal returned home at approximately 12:50 a.m. Note the distance between Max's house, Cortland, and Sal's Grove place takes about 30 minutes to walk. And police confirmed Sal alibi and with his 4-1 friends over that weekend. Missing posters went from house to house inquiries and started on the Sunday. On the morning, 100 volunteers helped the police carry out searches in the local woodland. I seen the news footage, a whole antline of people in the trees calling her name. Later in the day, first scouting team spotted him going into the Bell residence. And on Tuesday, everything changed. I think chronically, it was the best way to consider that events of the day and those that followed, even though we as a town learned the details of order and jumbled. Mid-morning, Naomi Ward, Max Hastings, Jake Lawrence, and Melly Simpson contacted the police from school and confessed to providing false information. They said Sal had asked him to lie and that he actually left Max's house around 10:30 p.m. on the night Andy disappeared and not 12:15. I don't know for sure what the correct police procedure would have been, but I'm guessing at that point, Sal became the number 1 suspect. But no one tried him. Sal wasn't at school and he wasn't at home. He wasn't answering his phone. Later came out, however, that Sal sent a text to his father that Tuesday morning, though he was ignoring all other calls. That press would refer to him as a confession text. Tuesday evening, one of the police teams searching for Andy found a body in the woods. It was Sal's. He had killed himself. The press never reported the method by which Sal committed suicide, but the power of a small town rumor I knew, as did every other student at Fairview at the time. Sal walked into the woods near his home and took a huge dose of sleeping pills and placed a plastic bag over his head, securing it with an elastic band around his neck. He suffocated while unconscious. At the police press conference that night, there was no mention of Sal. The police only revealed the information about security footage, placing Andy driving away from her home at 10:40 p.m. On Wednesday, Andy's car was found parked in a small residential row, Monterey. It wasn't until the following morning that a police spokesman revealed the following. As a result of recent intelligence and forensic information, we have a strong reasons to suspect that a young man named Sally Singh, age 18, was involved in Andy's abduction and murder. The evidence would have been sufficient to arrest and charge the suspect, but and had he not died before his proceeding could be initiated. Police are not looking for anyone else in relation to Annie's disappearance at this time, but our search for Annie will continue unabated. Our thoughts go to the Bell family and our deepest sympathies for this devastation this updated had caused them. There's sufficient evidence. They found Annie's phones on Sal's body. For Santa's test found traces of Annie's blood under the fingernails of his right middle and index fingers. Annie's blood was discovered in the trunk of her abandoned car. Sal's fingerprints were found on the dashboards of the steering wheel alongside the prints of Andy and the rest of the Bell family. The evidence, they said, would have been strong enough to charge Sal. But he was dead, so there was no trial and no conviction. No defense either. In following weeks, there were more searches in the woodlands areas in and around Fairview. Searches used car spotter dogs and police drivers in the river. Annie's body was never found. Any Bell's missing person cases was administratively closed in the middle of June. 18 months later, a court order was filed and Annie Bell was declared dead in absentia based on the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. Annie Bell's death certificate was issued. Though her body never having been located, she was now been legally declared dead. After the ruling in the district of the authority said, the case against Sally Singh would have been based on circumstantial forensic evidence. It is not for me to state whether or not Sal Singh killed Annie Bell. That would have been jury's job to decide. And even though there had never been a trial, no conviction by jury, even though Sal never had the chance to defend himself, he is guilty. Not in the legal scene, but in other ways that truly matter. When you ask people in the town what happened to Annie Bell, they'll tell you without hesitation, she was murdered by Sally Singh. No allegedly, no might have, no probably, no most likely. He did. They say Sally Singh killed Andy. But I'm not so sure. It was an emergency. The text said an SOS emergency. Pip knew immediately that would only mean one thing. She grabbed her car keys, yelled goodbye to her mom and Josh, and rushed out to the front door. She stopped in the store to buy a king-size chocolate bar to help mend Lauren's king-size broken heart. When she pulled outside the Gibbons house, she saw that Cara had the exact same idea. Except Cara's post-breakup first aid kit was more expensive than Pip's. She had also brought a box of tissues, chips and dip, and rainbow area face masks pockets. Ready for this? Pip asked Cara, hip bumping her in greeting. Corner of the box catching the end of her curly ash-brown hair. Pip pressed the doorbell and they both winced at the mechanical song. Lauren's mom answered the door. Oh, the cavalry is here. She's upstairs in her room. They found Lauren fully submerged in a duvet form on the bed. The only sign of her existence, a spray of ginger hair poking out from the bottom. It took a full minute of coasting and chocolate bait to get her to the surface. First, caller said, pulling the nose phones from her fingers, nail bit into the quick. You're banned from looking at this for the next 24 hours. He did it by text, Lauren wailed, blowing her nose and shooting an entire swamp into the tissue. Boys are dicks, and Clara said, putting her arm around Lauren and resting her sharp chin on her shoulder. You could do so much better than him. Yeah, Pip broke Lauren off with another line of chocolate. Besides, Thomas always said specifically when he meant specifically. And Clara pointed eagerly at Pip in agreement. Massive red flag. I specifically think you're better without him. I enthusiastically think that you are too, Clara said. Lauren gave a wet snort of laughter, and Clara winked at Pip, an unspoken victory. Thanks for coming, guys, Lauren said cheerfully, her pale eyes swollen and puffy. I didn't know if you would. I probably neglected you for half a year to hang out with Tom, and now I'll be third wheeling with two best friends. That's crap, Clara said. We're all best friends. Yeah, Pip nodded. Us and those three miracle boys we're allowed to bask in our delightful company, Clara and Lawrence laughed. The boys, Aunt, Zach, and Connor, were all currently away during the summer break. But our friends, Pip has known Clara the longest, and yes, they were the closest. An unsaid thing. They've been inseparable since 6 years old, and Clara had hugged the tiny, friendless Pip and asked, Do you like bunnies too? They were each other's crutch to lean on when life got too much to carry alone. Pip not only 10 at a time and helped Clara through her mom's diagnosis and death. And Pip had been her constant 2 years ago when Clara came out ready with a steady smile and phone calls into the early hours. Clara wasn't the face of a best friend, it was the face of a sister. But by extensions, Cara's family was Pip's second. Mr. Ward, in addition to being her history teacher, was his territorially father figure and her stepdad and the ghost of her first father. And Pip was at the Ward house so often she had her own mug with her name on it and a pair of slippers to match Cara's and her older sister's Naomi's. Okay, Clara lunged for the TV remote. Rom-coms are films where boys get violently murdered. It took roughly 1.5 of terrible films on the Netflix backlog for long to wade through denial and extend a cautionary towards acceptance. I should get a haircut, she said. That's what you're supposed to do. I've already said you look good with short hair. And do you think I should get my nose pierced? Oh yeah, Clara nodded. I didn't see the logic in putting a hole in your nose. In your nose hole? Said Pip. Another Pip quote for the books. Clara finished writing it down in midair. What was that one that got me the other day? The sausage one, Pip sighed. Oh yeah. So Laura, I was asking Pip which pajamas she wanted to wear, and she casually says it's sausage to me. And didn't realize why that was a weird response. It was not weird. My grandparents from my first dad are German. It's sausage to me is a German saying. Just means I don't care. Or you got a sausage fixation, Lauren laughed. Says the daughter of a porn star. Pip quivered. Oh my god, how many times? He's only did one new photo in this shot in the 80s. That's it. So on to boys from his decade, Clara said, prodding Pip to the shoulder. Did you go see Ravi Singh yet? Questionable siege, but yes, I am going back to interview him tomorrow. I can't believe you're already started on your capstone project, Lauren said with a dying swan dive back into the bed. I want to change mine already. Fat minds are depressing. You imagine you wanted to interview Naomi soon? Clara looked pointedly at Pip. Yeah, can you warn her I might be stopping by next week? Sure, Clara said. hesitated. She'll agree to it and everything. But can you go easy on her? She still gets really upset sometimes. I mean, she was one of her best friends. Actually, probably her best friend. Yeah, of course, Pip said. What do you think I'm going to do? Pin her down and then beat her response out of her? Is that your tactic for Ravi tomorrow? Ha. Lauren sat up then, with the short, non-sucking snip so loud, Kara made Kara visibly flinch. Are you going to his house tomorrow then? Yeah. But what are people going to think if they see you going to Ravi Singh's house? It's sausage to me. Capstone project entry 3. I'm based. I know I am. For reasons I don't even know how to explain myself, I want Sal Singh to be innocent. Reasons carried since I was 12 years old. Innocence that have nagged me all these past 5 years. But if I'm going to solve something, I have to be aware of someone who is utterly convinced of Sal's guilt. And Stanley Forbes, a journalist at the Fairview Mail, just responded to my email saying I could call anytime today. He covered a lot of Annie Bell's case with the local press and was even present at court hearing when she was declared dead a year and a half later. To be honest, I think he's a poor journalist, and I'm pretty sure the Singhs could sue him for defamation and libel about a dozen times over. I type up the transcript here right after. Transcript of interview with the Stanley Forbes from the Fairview Mail newspaper. Hi Stanley, this is Pippa. We were emailing each other earlier. Stanley. Yep. Yeah, I know. You wanted to pick my brain about the Annabelle Sally Singh case, right? Yeah, that's the right one. Do you mind if I recorded our conversation? Sure, shoot. Oh, thanks. So, first, you attended the court hearing that established Andy as legally dead, correct? Sure did. Since the national press wouldn't elaborate much further than reporting the verdict, I was wondering if you could tell me what kind of evidence was presented. Also, the main investigator on Annie's case was outlined by details of her disappearance, the times, and so on. And he moved on the evidence that linked Sally to her murder. They made a big deal about the blood in the trunk of her car. They said this suggested that she was murdered and her body was put in the trunk and transported somewhere else. They said something like, it seems clear that Annie was the victim of a sexually motivated murder and considerable efforts were made to dispose of her body. Pip, and did Detective Richard Hawkins or any other officer provide a timeline of what they believed were the events of that night and how Sal allegedly killed her? Yeah, I kind of remember that. Annie left home in her car, and at some point Sally walked home. He intercepted her with either him or her driving. He took her to a scheduled place and murdered her. He put her in the trunk of her car and drove somewhere else and to hide or dispose to her body. Mind you, well enough that it hasn't been found in 5 years. That must have been a pretty big hole. And he ditched the car on the road where it was found, Monor, I think, and he walked home. So because of the blood in the trunk, police believed Annie was killed somewhere and then hidden in a different location? Yep. Okay, in a lot of your articles in the case, you referred to Sally as a killer, a murderer, and even a monster. You're aware without conviction you're not supposed to use words allegedly when reporting crime stories. Not sure I need a child to tell me how to do my job. Anyway, it's obvious that he did it, and everyone knows it. He killed her, the guilt drove him into suicide. And how are you so convinced Sal's guilty? Almost too many things to list. Evidence aside, he was the boyfriend, right? It's always the boyfriend or the ex-boyfriend. Not only that, Sally was Indian. Well, he was actually born and raised in the United States. Though it was not notable for you to refer him as Indian in all of your articles. Well, same thing. He was sort of Indian heritage. Why is that relevant? Relevant. I'm not an expert or anything. But they have different ways of life from us, don't they? They treat women quite like they don't treat women quite like we do. I'm guessing maybe Andy decided she didn't want to be with him or something and then killed her in a wage because in his eyes, she belonged to him. Wow, I honestly, Stanley, I'm pretty surprised if you still have a job. That's because everyone knows I'm saying is true. I don't agree. And I don't think it's responsible to publicity. He calls someone a murderer without using allegedly when there's no competition. Or even worse, calling Sal a monster. It's no interest to compare report about Sal with the recent articles about the Stanford smuggler. He murdered 5 people and pleaded guilty. Yet in your headline you refer to him as a lovesick young man. Is that because he's white? That's got nothing to do with Sally's case. I just call it how it is. You need to relax. He's dead. Why does it matter if people call him a murderer? It can't hurt him because his family isn't dead. Look, this is a waste of my time. You really think he's innocent? Against expertise of senior officers? I just think there are certain gaps in the case against Sal, that's all. Yeah, maybe if the kid hasn't off himself before getting arrested, he would have been able to fill the gaps. That was insensitive. Well, it was insensitive of him to kill his girlfriend. Allegedly. You want more proof that the killed was a killer, fangirl. You weren't allowed to print it, but my source of the police said they found a death threat note in Annie's school locker. He threatened her and then he did it. Do you really think he's innocent? Maybe he is. And you're a racist, intolerant bitch who... Stanley hangs up the phone. This is the end of this video. Bye!